This was in the early 1950s, and at that time, of course, it was right in the middle of the Cold War, and they got together a bunch of groups called the Ground Observers.
When the Ground Observer Corp started, the Air Force representative came down here, and I think they met with Civil Defense. And my dad and Howard Maddox were going to be in charge of it, and I'm sure there were others that I don't remember, but we had about 20 members, but our job was to watch the skies and report aircraft. And of course, we were young and we thought, what do we do if we saw a Russian bomber coming over, but we had a wire, I guess a straight line wire or some way to get in touch with the Air Force to report anything unusual in the sky.
Our job was to make sure that no Russian, Soviet airplanes came across. And if we spotted one, we had this phone number in Nashville that we were supposed to call. It was a big thing, though, at that time because, this was right in the middle of the Cold War, and people were asked to build underground places to go and stay in case of a bombing raid and all of that stuff, and we really were putting it together.
We organized and we met at City Hall, and one of the pictures of the group is a lot of the people. Howard Maddox is in it, and I'm in it. A lot of the local guys that I went to school with are all Explorer Scouts, I think, or Boy Scouts. The siren was up there. You see the siren, but we'd stand up there and watch. And some of the braver guys would climb the water tank. We weren't supposed to.
But Jimmy Moore, his father, was in charge of the defense of around here, and Jimmy, I believe, was a deputy director.
We met down at City Hall, and then finally we got the money. I think the city and county maybe and a power system. They set poles for us. We built a tower out on 7th Street near the school.
I guess we had it over at the Ingram South School yard because plenty of room, and it was kind of almost out of town at that time. And so that's where they decided to build it.
High enough that we could see the whole horizon. And we all took our turns staying there and watching the skies with these binoculars they gave us. And we had an Air Force guy trained us on what kind of planes and what to look for and listen for. We
had different volunteers who would come and go up the tower on various times. We had about 2-hour shifts apiece, and I remember it. That 60-foot high tower is a pretty good tower, but I never was much for heights, but I remember climbing it. And we almost completed construction. You still see the scaffolding around it, but after that we put siding on it and painted it, I think. It was really neat because we had people that would stay there all night, and watch, and we had shifts that we would all do it. So, and they passed out these little merit awards after you'd put in 250 hours or so, and you had a little tag on it, 250 hours and another 250 or whatever, but they did mount up. My time, the best I remember was at 9 o'clock on Sunday night, and I would stay up there until 11. And but it had a nice room up there, and they had heat in the wintertime, and it had some windows that you could roll up if it was hot. Kenneth Harvey was my school. His mother was Miss Freeman, Bessie Freeman. She was a teacher, and anyway, we were in high school together. But he was a big part of it. He helped build it, and we worked together. And we were friends. So one day when we were taking pictures of the crowd, that when they had the dedication, he laid on top of his car, and I took his picture from the tower like he'd fallen through, and then that was a big laugh. And I think they ran it in the paper one time. At that time, really, most people did think that something was going to happen. Of course, Lawrenceburg, maybe not, but I guess we thought, well, it's going to come through Lawrenceburg to go to some of these other places down around Muscle Shoals or up around Nashville or wherever. So we didn't take it as something that was play. It was really a serious thing. Now looking back, you don't know about why we would think that way, but the thinking during that part of just right after the Korean War, and we didn't know what was going to happen, and the Soviet Union was building up, and we were building up, and
we felt like we were working for the Air Force. And it was kind of like being Explorer Scouts, you know. Of course, we laughed and cut up about things, you know. We got hungry, you know, we'd go get chocolate milk. I remember we'd always get chocolate milk and something to eat, cookies or whatever. And some of the guys showed up for the food, you know, for that. But it was quite a climb up there. It was, I don't know, it was 7 stories, you know, and inside it was just stair steps around like this all the way up to the top, and then you went up through the floor. And it had a top on it, but that we could, if it was raining, you know, we could get in there.
We had some binoculars, and we looked through those. One of us would at a time, and it was, you know, we talked about things. Besides that, it was a pretty nice tower we had, man. I tell you what, it was they had a nice room upstairs, and we had a telephone too. I believe we had a couple of telephones, and we had numbers. If we was to spot a Soviet airplane, we were supposed to call both Nashville and I believe Muscle Shoals, and tell them what was going on, that you better watch out, you're fixing to get bombed.
I guess after the Cold War thing kind of died off, we quit, and I think our civil defense group, a lot of those guys stayed in civil defense, and the Air Force trained us how to use our crash truck and things like that. But we always had a pretty good crowd of volunteers. We did a lot of good things. You know, nobody probably knew about them, but if there was a tornado in West Point, we went down there and carried food like people do now. You know, you just go out and do something good. But I enjoyed it. Had a lot of friends, still have friends that talk about it, like Bergie Justice. You know, he come back, he was wearing his badge, and he said, "Have you got a picture of this and all?" I said, "Yeah." So I finally found him one. But he said, "Well, that's just part of my life that I was happy about." I think we were pretty good at it. We got these little citations that they give to us when it was over, you know, and I think some of them had the fear that you might have to go in the Air Force, you know, some of the guys that want to be in the Army. But
most all of this was probably all of the United States, because we were at war, even though nobody was shooting. We were still at war with the Soviet Union, really. I mean, we didn't know what to expect and when. And we were trying to make sure that it didn't happen.